Certainly energy, as it was mentioned by Jim O'Neill, not only the energy reform itself in terms of access to private players into the energy market, but also the reform of Pemex, the state-owned company. More advances are needed very clearly in monopolies and in competition. We have advanced a lot, but still we face many challenges. We wouldn't be here today in terms of the opportunities that are being stressed by our panelists if we wouldn't have been successful in our macroeconomic stability reform. 17 years ago, 18 years ago, it seemed impossible. Some of us even entertained the idea of adopting the US dollar as the currency of the land because there was no hope. Well, we have applied consistently a good monetary policy with a good fiscal policy, both very responsible, very well aligned, and macroeconomic stability today is considered a given. This is a precondition for growth. The other precondition is clearly security. And security goes well beyond drug trafficking. It is about the ability of the state to provide citizens on certainties of the right to live in peace with their families, in their communities, to make the most out of their own opportunities and the most out of the opportunities for their own children. And this, of course, is a two-track task. On the one hand is, of course, fighting organized crime, but this is not about ending drug trafficking, not because it is not a good objective in itself, but because this is not something which is achievable for any single country on its own. This is about security. This is about building institutions which provide certainty on a regular basis to citizens. This is about the rule of law, which was very well pointed out. So violence has evolved the last 7 or 8 years in a very dramatic manner. It has doubled in terms of absolute numbers and relative numbers. It compares not that bad with other countries, but because we are not accommodating this as normal, this is not normal, one is too many, we are tackling it in a very bold manner. If you see the evolution of violence, it comes from the fragmentation process of criminal groups, which fight each other, of course, fight the state forces. And in that sense, the effort is focused towards impeding the reproduction of the criminal model in time and geography, which means to affect their ability to produce income on a sustained basis and impede the recruiting of new entrants into the business. And this has been so far quite successful. It's not evident, but numbers show now a peak and maybe a downward trend. This is going to be a trend downwards, as it has been in other countries, eventful. We will see a lot of events, and maybe our perception will be driven by perception. But the most important task, on top of this one, is institutional build-up. We do not have the right institutional strength to really face the challenge before us. We never did build such institutions, and we do need to build a functional police force with the right deployment. 6 years ago we had 6,000 federal police officers. Today we have 36,000. We need 100,000. We need to avoid and end this highly fragmented police institutional architecture with municipal police forces and unify them into state functional police forces. And we need, of course, to build up a decent functional justice system, which is not yet here with us. And of course, the prison reform is self-evident. So we are moving towards that, and in that sense, our perception is not necessarily aligned with this. And everyone talks about this. The country is far from being derailed, and the economic numbers and performance, job creation, the manufacturing growth, the advances in social cohesion, the fact that we are reaching universal healthcare basic coverage this year, all show that the country is moving forward. But it seems that in our conversation it's not necessarily the case. So we have here with us three very important and educated panelists. I will have first Gabriel Anguiano from Lloyds to ask him to please explain if, in your perspective, what is the relationship between the Mexican insurance market and Lloyds, and how the Mexican risks are being reinsured by London. What are the risks and lines of business generally ceded to the London market, and how the criminal activities or insecurity in Mexico affect the reinsurance market and in general the way of making business in Mexico. Gabriel.
Well, good morning and thank you. Just a few minutes ago I was having a coffee with a broker from London, a London broker who will be speaking at tomorrow's Mexico Insurance Day, hence my just on time arrival. He was confirming to me what sometimes eludes me, and that is that the Mexican market for Lloyds is actually a fairly mature market. Lloyds and London in general have been seeing Mexican risks on a significant scale for more than 20 years. That means that this market has an accumulated experience in seeing risks from Mexico. In Mexico we operate as a reinsurer only. Having said that, we tend to, on some occasions, take on most of the risk when it comes to certain types of activities. It's important that we are here when we're talking about security, because Lloyds is also known as a market that specializes in taking on risks that relate to the topic of security. So, having said that, I will now just give you a brief overview of what type of risks we insure from Mexico. The interesting notion that may surprise some of you who are not familiar with Mexico is that actually very little of the risks we receive from Mexico relate to, on the grand scale of scheme of things, to insecurity. Most of what we get from Mexico is actually related to natural catastrophes, which is one of the main threats that the country faces from our perspective. That would take up, I would say, a big proportion of our business. A lot of that is related to government risks. Example of that are the natural catastrophe funds. We reinsure those. All the state entities look after infrastructure, oil, and of course we also reinsure the Mexican private insurance companies, which also take on risks of some public entities. But I would say the vast majority is property and government, a big chunk of that. Now, in the context of Latin America, actually, the business we get from Mexico related to terrorism and political violence, it does exist, but it's quite small. By now, it is far from being our most important market in Latin America. So that may give you some clues as to the relationship between insurance and security. The interest in that type of cover is beginning to grow, however, and in fact, tomorrow at 4 in the afternoon, there's a panel on terrorism where our friends from the Mexican Association of Insurance Industry will be talking about trends. Without going into the detail, the growing interest is not so much that we see an increase in activity as far as terrorism, but it's more to do with the definition of what is terrorism and what is not, and how the insurance industry in Mexico is able to get compensated for certain elements of risks that up to now the insurance companies have been giving away for free. So in the same way that they have specific clauses where the insured buy additional protection for hurricane or earthquake, Mexican insurance companies would like to get compensated because of the risk they're taking on, associated with things like civil commotion, industrial action, criminal activity, organized crime, and terrorism, of course, which does get charged. The impact for Lloyds is not significant. As I said, most of what we do is property, so it doesn't have any impact on the price of insurance. But I do understand that for Mexican insurance companies, there has been an effect. An indicator is motor insurance, where we don't really participate much in Mexico. There is definitely an increase in crime levels. Last year we saw the peak in terms of car thefts, but it's not just the number of car thefts, but also the nature of car thefts, which indicates an increased level in organized crime. This year, it's falling. I mean, not significantly, but it's